Our girl is destitute.
What conspiracy theory do you have?
You're the Feyre.
I'm Feyre. He hates Tamlin. He's also a bit of a petty bitch.
And yet, she decides, let me just shoot my shot and see it. I'm like, girl. Hi.
Hi. Yay.
How are you? Yay, we're on.
We're here. Yay. Welcome back, friends. Thanks for
Welcome back.
coming back and listening to another one of us yapping about some books.
Some smut.
Some
We haven't
smut.
gotten to the smut yet, but you know, we're slowly getting there.
So funny how instinctually I wanted to be like, it's more than that. But
No, and let me tell you, like, since we last recorded, which was like probably about a month ago, I have expanded my smut reading, my romantasy readings
Yeah.
beyond just ACOTAR and the Empyrean series. So like I now see what you mean in terms of like, look, do we get smutty in ACOTAR? Absolutely we do, but it is nowhere near the level of some other books. So I'm currently we'll get to it when I get to my what is my Cauldron Save Me moment of the week. But currently reading Phantasma and super fucking into it. But I was like, I got through like, I read a lot last night. I'm like, I think I got through like 3 sex scenes just from one night. I was like, damn, okay, all right.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. I knew you would. The minute I started reading it, I was like, okay, I got to get Ariel onto this one, because just like the whole kind of like horror aspect of the whole book is just like so fun. It's
So good.
fun. And just like, yeah, it's a very fun one. And it is funny. You do find yourself in some of the sex scenes. You're like, oh, this is, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here for it, but you're like, yep, this is occurring and I'm weirdly totally into this. Okay, sweet.
Super into it. Well, and also like I debated saying this, but I'm gonna get a little vulnerable on the podcast. I didn't know going into it that the main character is OCD, and I'm OCD. I don't know if I'd say severely, but pretty heavily OCD. And the way it's described is one of the most accurate depictions I've read. Like I've gotten like emotional. It's been weird because I'll get emotional, but then I'll get like really turned on. Like a second later, I'm like, oh, this is weird. But I love it. I love it. So yeah, for all my OCD peeps out there, just know going into it might be a little triggering, but also you feel very seen.
Good. I'm so glad, because like that was one of the things actually that made me love that main character so much, was that she's this very, very intelligent, very loyal character, but has this other aspect of who she is that is, some people could consider it a flaw or what have you, but it doesn't matter. The reality is that it is a very real thing she has to deal with.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool to give us this main character who has this thing that she is constantly battling and living through and working through. And I just thought it was like really, really awesome, because for me, who I do not, as much as like people make the flippant jokes of like, oh, I'm OCD, like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Really reading this made me realize like, oh, I really need to stop throwing that about, because I am not. I know there are different levels of OCD and I'm very aware of that, but like her process and her situation and everything, I was just like, okay, yeah, like, wow, I learned a lot by reading that book, by what her process was and how real the stakes felt and all of that. And I was just like, wow, like I'm so thankful that this writer created this character, because I thought I was just going into like a weird horror smutty book, and I came away, as I tend to do with a lot of these books, I learned something, and I thought it was really cool. But so I'm so glad to hear that it made you feel, seen. That's really cool. That's really awesome.
Yeah. Seeing a character, and this is why representation matters, right? Like whether it's in Phantasma or like ACOTAR or the Empyrean series, like, so like if you can see heroes like who look and like do things like
Mhm.
you feel less alone in the
Yeah.
world, right? And like, because that was something like Ophelia in the book, like she hides from people because
Mhm.
she's like, it's only me and I'm crazy. And like, that was me for at least a decade of
Yeah.
my life, my younger life. And like, even now, I don't tell a ton of people, which is like, why I'm surprised I'm saying it now. But I don't want people feeling alone. And like,
Yeah.
it's really important. So like seeing that, like this badass woman, especially in, like, a horror series,
Yeah.
like, horror being, like, my main thing, I'm like, "Oh my god, like, this is amazing." So, yeah, I've been loving it.
I mean, this honestly kind of like really rounds up into like why I think we even wanted to do this podcast or like whatever, because it's just like these books hold so much more power, more than just sexual liberation, which is an incredible level of power and education. But there's also just, a lot of these, I mean, we're specifically talking about books written by a lot of female writers, and these women, they are creating these characters that are just they're so much more real and they're complex. And
Yeah.
I always love the idea heroes and leaders and all of this stuff, they're not they're not these like perfect godlike creatures.
Yeah.
they they're heroes and they're brave because they fight through their fear, or because they fight through their isms and their things that make them special and make them who they are, but like they continue forward. And I just
Yeah, it's so cool. Well, I feel like this actually is a perfect segue into one of my, what has me saying "Cauldron Save Me" this week.
oh gosh, we may have the same one.
Since our last recording, I finished the Empyrean series. I'm all caught up. Fucking Onyx Storm. But what I was gonna say is, like for instance, I know Rebecca Yarros. I've been like watching a ton of interviews with her. She talks about like she has chronic pain, and so like that's why Violet
Mm.
Sorrengail has chronic pain and like whatnot. And so it's cool, like you were saying, it's really cool seeing these like imperfect heroes who are still badass.
Mhm.
Um, that being said, oh my fucking, I won't spoil for those who haven't read Onyx Storm, but I am actually going crazy because I don't after that ending, like, are you kidding me? Like, Rebecca Yarros, what are you doing to us? What are you doing to us?
Y'all, if I could show you screenshots of the text messages that I have been receiving from Ariel since she is finished, they've been really hilarious. Ariel has entered the my heart was just ripped out of my chest, and there's no book to tell me if I can safely put it back.
Yeah.
There's
No,
no book to
truly.
let me know if my heart is gonna be okay, and now I'm just supposed to sit
Yeah.
with this? Cool.
Yeah, no, well, because like, I've been so spoiled with the Sarah J.
Yeah.
Maas verse, like, Throne of Glass is presumably wrapped up. Silver Flames ends on a note of, like, there's still definitely gonna be I mean, we know for a fact there's gonna be a 6th book, but it's not like a cliffhanger
Yeah.
ending, right? Crescent City, even though we're getting a 4th book, again, it is kinda wrapped up in a
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
and then I got to the Empyrean series where I'm like, exact opposite. I'm like, What do you mean I now have to wait
Yeah.
2 years now?"
Yeah.
It's been great though because like not only have I gotten to talk to you about it, but I found out my friend Katie, who is like longtime friend, shout out Katie if you're listening to this. I've been trying to get her to read Akatar. She's also the mother of my goddaughter.
Mhm.
Had no idea she was into romantasy and like is
Ooh.
a like huge Empyrean series
Ooh.
fan. So we've been like sending each other TikToks and stuff and I'm like,
Nice.
"Oh my god, this is amazing." So
Yeah.
it's like the friendships that like you create are strengthened through romantasy, like it's just it's opened my world.
Yeah. It's so wild. It is very wild.
Let's get into what we're really here for.
Yeah.
And that is some face smut, which we have yet to get to. But we have learned a lot more about this world in these chapters that we did.
Yeah.
So,
So we where we left off, right, is at the end of chapter 6. She chooses her clothes. She's in her
mhm,
trousers and her tunic.
which we
We
love.
love a queen who's just like, and also I just love Alice for just being like, yeah, fine. But then
I
it
love
ends.
Alice.
I know I love Alice. It ends with Alice having the kind of whole conversation of kind of warning her of like what she did to Andress, like people may have some issues with her,
Yeah.
to kind of, so, kind of keep her head down. But also she kind of has this moment of like, but like Lucien, like you should give him some shit because he kind of does better when people kind of give him some crap.
And it's true.
And it
It's
is
so
true.
true.
Yeah. And so that's where we left off.
And now we're
So,
into chapter 7,
mhm,
where we get a very big answer to something we've been wondering, which is, what is this guy's name? And his
what
name
is
is Tamlin.
Tamlin? We get a name finally. Huzzah.
Huzzah, we can finally say it. So, Lil TamTam, as some people in the fandom like to call him. He has
Yep.
other nicknames, which we'll probably talk about in the spoiler section.
Later.
But his name is Tamlin,
Mhm.
and he's old. We don't know how old, but literally, she says he could be hundreds of years old, thousands.
No
Like,
clue.
all we know is he's an old bitch.
He's an old bitch. Yeah, he's an old guy,
As
but he's
as is many of the Fae, we also don't know how old Lucian is. She talks about it later. He says he's not as old as the war. He gets insulted when she's like, "Did you fight in the war?" And he's like,
yeah.
"Jesus, I'm not that old."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, which was a funny little bit between the three of them, but specifically, I would say at this point, like what has been fascinating for me during this reread is this relationship between Feyre and Lucian is
Mhm.
really fascinating.
Yeah.
And we
Yeah.
know obviously she's killed their friend.
Yes.
So the question is like, knowing that, why are they being so, especially when Tamlin says, he literally says, what you do with your life isn't my problem.
Yeah.
Yet, by the same token, he won't let her leave. Like he won't let her go venture out and beyond his manor. Um, so the question is why, right?
Yeah.
It's this little mystery.
Yeah, it's very confusing because he very clearly cares what she does, honestly. Like I think it's pretty obvious, but yet he keeps being like, I don't I don't care what you do with your life. Like
Yeah.
do whatever you want, you know. I mean, but I think as a reader, it's it's kind of nice to have this conversation because this is when we find out like I mean, this is what he says, so we hope we can believe him, but like, he's basically saying like cuz she's like, am I supposed to be your slave? Like what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
And so it's nice as a reader we're getting these little check off moments of like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
She asked, in theory, if we believe what he's saying, like, which honestly, like, I don't know, so far, there's really, besides the fact that he's a fae, I don't feel like there's much. I mean, and maybe like the magic moment when he knocks her out to get her to the house. That's a little,
Yeah.
but like, there's not a wild amount to not believe him
Right.
because, he comes raging in to get her because she killed his fucking friend and skinned him alive. Which there's
Yeah.
that moment, right, where they kind of talk about that a little bit in this chapter, and he's like, I don't want the details. But this whole dinner scene is just so funny because like this really to me is when you truly get like Beauty and the Beast vibes
Yes.
because it's like you have this weird there's like this weird section of like he tries he tries to compliment her and and Lucian's like looking at her like or looking at Tamlin like trying to kind of he's kind of like poking him like yeah like giving him like support and it feels like that scene where like Cogsworth and Lumiere just like and
I was gonna
and
say, I realized while reading this chapter for the first time ever, oh, Lucian is Tamlin's Lumiere, which is just like picturing Lucian, especially if you've read the whole series, like knowing his arc, just picturing him as this little candelabra, like being like, "Hey, buddy, like just try flirting with her. Come on, come on,
you can do it.
you
Yeah,
can."
no, it's like so awkward. Like cuz what he even yeah, he's like you look better than before
Yeah,
and your hair is clean. And it literally says in the middle of there that like she swears that she sees Lucian like give him like an encouraging nod. And you're just like, what is happening here? Also, this compliment
yes,
portion happens after Tamlin serves her food. So
yeah,
there's sort of this like moment of, serving all this food, and also in that moment we get this other reminder that he is a high fae. And so we get this other reminder, just kind of like, this is like, not only is he like royal, like he's fae, which is already enough for her, but then he is high fae. He's at like this high tier of the fairydom. And
Yes.
it's like, it's,
Famous.
yeah, fairness. And so it's kind of this like weird moment of like, right, this guy is like wildly powerful.
Yeah.
And he serves her this food because it's also, we're also at this point where it's like Feyre is still not eating, and he's just like, oh my God, please eat. And so he serves her, and then he starts complimenting her. So there's kind of this like boom, boom, boom where you're like, what is happening here?
Rereading this now, knowing what does happen, it's so funny because, like, on the one hand, Lucien is like Lucian's he's kind of a petty bitch to her. Like, he's a sassy little bitch to her,
I
which
literally
I'd
have
forgotten.
I have in my notes, Lucien is a sassy broad.
No, he so is, and
Yeah.
I'd forgot the Lucien that we get to know is so different from
Oh,
that,
yeah.
like, later on, that I forgot how fucking like, how much of a sassafras he is to her. And so, like, he's absolutely, like, reading her to filth, right?
Yep.
But then he has these moments of clearly, like, trying to get Tamlin to, like, at the very least be nice to her, if not flirt with her, and it's like, what is going on there? Like, why is this happening?
He does this whole moment of like, I haven't seen you guys in a while, but like, are we not like super pretty to look at? And he does this whole, and it's so bizarre. She's like about to burst up in laughter. She's like, what the fuck? Like, we just went from talking about how I'm like I'm kind of a prisoner, but not. Tamlin just used his magic to keep me in my chair to fucking eat. Which is wild,
Mhm.
right? Because it's right after you're kind of like, oh, cool,
Yeah.
Tamlin's like being super fair, but oh no, he's gonna capture her, which we'll
Yep.
talk about later. But it's like, and then they start talking about Isaac, and they ask her if she's in love with anybody, and like Tamlin and Lucien are riveted. They are riveted.
They're such queens. They're such
They're
little
like,
gossipy
wait,
queens.
I know, just little gossipy queens, and they're just like, wait, like, are you in love with this guy? But like, we're really pretty. Like, you should hang. Like, why are
You
you leaving?
Why aren't you fawning over us?
Exactly. But it's so bizarre that you're just
It
like,
is.
whoa.
Yeah.
And like from like a romance girly side, you're like, oh, this is precious. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love this idea. Cause now you're kind of like, as a romance reader, you're like, okay, her love interest is probably one of these guys. Right?
Right.
Like, let's be honest. Or maybe some we haven't met yet. I don't know. But
Yeah.
normally we've already met the person by this point. And so
Right.
you're kind of like, is it gonna be Tamlin? Is it gonna be Lucien?
Right.
Like, oh, look at them both just like, so like, yeah, this guy, like, are you in love with him? Uh, and like, like, are you kind of like experienced? Like, they just get so gossipy tea, like, give me the tea. Like,
Yeah.
it's so bizarre, especially with the conversation
So
that they just
funny.
came off of. And I just feel
Yeah.
like it's just such a funny moment to like clock, because you're just like,
Yeah.
what are we, what are we doing here, guys?
I think what's funny, and we'll learn this later on too, is it's not just Tamlin and Lucien. Like, a lot of the Fae males, like, and I'm talking like Fae males who are like warrior, like big buff meaty warriors, are like really into their looks, and
Yeah.
it's actually really silly, and I love it.
Oh yeah, it's very silly, and it's
Yeah,
very weird.
they know how
And
pretty they are.
yeah, well, and also when she's just kind of like, why are you bothering like to ask me about this? And he's just like, we just like wanted to learn more about you. And like Lucian's like really prideful and all this stuff, and you're
Yeah.
just like, okay, dude, what the fuck, bro? Like, it's just,
Well,
this whole dinner is just so bizarre.
so bizarre, and it highlights like really how not used to high society Feyre is
Yes.
anymore, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
like if this were Elaine or Nesta, they would be like they would know
Yep.
exactly the proper manners, right? Of what to do, how to speak, like what to talk about. But Feyre, who's used to just like getting up every morning at the crack of dawn and going out hunting, is like, what? Like,
Yeah. Well, it's like these men that she, like, legit has no idea if they're gonna kill her, if they're gonna eat her. She just now actually ate their food,
Yeah.
and they're just and then when she wants to leave, Lucian's like, "Why aren't you drinking with us and looking at how beautiful we are?" She's like,
But
"What?
also, like, "Tell us about your boyfriend." She's like, "He's not my boyfriend."
Are you do you have somebody? Are you in love?" Like, "Bro, what the fuck?" But it's nice as a reader, like, okay, so she's not a prisoner, she's not a slave. He's not expecting for her to do anything untoward.
Untoward. Yeah.
Look at us.
Jinx.
Um, but, like, so you're kinda like, "Okay, so cool." But, yeah, what is she supposed to do? Because in theory, she's supposed to be here for the rest of her life. So, like, what
Right.
what the fuck is she supposed to do? And I also think this brings up she says, "So you truly mean for me to stay here forever? What I meant was, so I'm to stay in this luxury while my family starves to death."
Yes.
And, like,
Yes.
this is a big moment because for her, her whole, like, purpose of being right now is to help keep her family alive and save her family because the oath that she did with her mom, right?
Yes.
And so I think it makes so much sense that she's just kind of like, "Are you fucking serious? I'm supposed to live here." Because also when she first comes down to the dinner table, she talks about the gold and all the
Yeah.
food and the
Yes.
filigree and just like all this stuff. And everything is just dripping in wealth and excess. And she's
Yep.
just like, okay, while this is cool, also, bro, are you joking? Like, I
Yeah.
went from squalor to this, and I'm supposed to stay here for the rest of my life, which, like, one side, dope. Other
Right.
side, fuck. And I'm just supposed to not worry about my sisters and my dad. Like, I was literally their source of
Right.
food. What the fuck's supposed to happen?
That yeah, and it's I'm really glad you brought that up because it's really interesting because despite making it out, right? And like we see this type of story in so it spans genres,
Yeah,
it spans,
yeah,
you know, time
yeah,
of the survivor,
yeah,
right? Because that's she's having survivor's guilt, right? She gets out but feels guilty about everyone who's left behind,
yeah.
right? And again, it's just such a testament to her. I think it's such good character building of like we immediately know what type of a person she is, right? Like
Mhm.
she is not selfish. She really deeply cares about other people, even people who don't care as much about her, right? Although I mean, I would we'll get into it
Yeah, yeah,
later
yeah,
in the
yeah.
series. Like her family does love her, but like they don't show it as much as she does.
Yeah.
But luckily, we find out her family is being taken care of by
Mhm.
Tamlin. We don't know the extent, but at the bare minimum, we know they're not starving to death, right? And she has some
Mhm.
theories on like how they might be taken care of, but we find out they're fine, right?
Yeah. As a reader, you're, like, kind of starting to be like, "Oh, cool. Tamlin's taking care of her family.
Right.
Okay. Huh." But then he has this moment of like, "Oh, but by the way, if you leave Perithian, I will not take care of your family anymore." So then you're kind of back to this like, okay, which I mean, like we knew, like it's part of the treaty. Like her life is supposed to be Prithian, whatever. And it's just this very interesting thing of these both sides are just looking at each other as monsters. Because there's so many mentions of her describing Tamlin's movements as like animalistic
Yeah.
and even the way that they're staring at her, like they use the predator prey thing like constantly. On one end, Feyre is like, in what way are you taking care of them? How are you doing it? Why would I believe that? But then on Tamlin's side, he's like, you think I'm this much of a monster that I'm going to take away their one form of getting food and
Yep.
just leave them there? Like, what the fuck? Like, what? And it goes back to one of the things we talked about, I think, in the last chapter of like, like, wow, like how far have humans gone that they think that, Fae would do X, Y, and Z?
What's funny for me is like I personally understand why Feyre thinks that because
Yeah.
it is the Fae who enslaved
Yeah.
humans. But then Tamlin even says like he's like I don't keep slaves.
Yeah.
Like and we'll find out more about that later, but like Tamlin not a fan of
No,
enslaving people,
no,
which is
he's
like
not.
one of his like really redeemable
Hmm.
qualities, right? But the other thing that I found interesting is Feyre and the other humans have been raised with the belief
Yep.
that Fae cannot lie,
Yeah.
right? And so it is really interesting, like, she kinda keeps having to remind herself, like, "Okay, I don't believe him, but I should
Yeah.
because he can't lie to me."
Yeah.
And neither can none of these Fae can lie to me, right?
Right.
And that is a huge part in why she begins to trust Tamlin and Lucien and everyone.
She's like, "Why the fuck would I believe you?" And he's like, "Why the fuck do you think I would just leave them with no one to like, what?" To me, that kind of goes into this overall concept of like when you have enemies or when you have these things, like it's so much easier to view them as a monster, as something that's like
Yeah.
lowly and something that's like evil. And it's really way more complicated and way more uncomfortable if you start realizing like actually neither of us think we're the bad guy. Neither of us
Right.
think we both actually exist in this gray area, because they're saying all these things that are very opposite of what she was brought up with about like what these fae are and who they are and what they do and all this stuff. And so yeah, like I think she's constantly kind of battling of like, okay, like actually how safe am I here? Like actually how, like, am I good? Am I not good? Like, I should probably still leave because like who knows what does taking care of them mean, you know?
We start to get glimmers of what Feyre is like outside of survival mode,
Mhm.
right? And what's interesting to me is it's not easy for her to
Mhm.
just as it is in real life, right? Like she doesn't just go like, "Oh, my family's taken care of, I'm taken care of, everything's good."
Yeah.
No. So the next day after this dinner, she gets ready. She starts walking down. I think it's to the dining room. She stops and she looks at this still life and she just like admires it. And she says, "The skill it must have taken to make them look so lifelike, to make them more than lifelike. Just a vase of flowers against a dark background. But more than that, the flowers seem to vibrate with their own light, as if defiance of the shadows gathered around them. The mastery needed to make the glass vase hold that light, to bend the light within with the water within, as the vase did indeed have weight to it atop a stone pedestal. Remarkable." So like she's like taking this moment to admire something she loves. Like we know she loves painting, but then immediately after, she's like, "Oh no, no, I don't have time. Like, no, no,
Not useful,
I
not useful.
not useful." Yeah, and this will come back later in another chapter we read this week that I'll probably bring up, but like she's so used to being in that survival mode and only looking at things that are useful to hers or her family's survival, that she's not used to like understanding what life beyond survival could be. And this is kind of the first time we see her realize there is a life beyond what there is a better world. Like her dad talks about, like
Mhm.
I think it was one of the last chapters, there is a better world out there for her. And
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool that we're finally getting to see that side of Feyre and see her develop that part of her life, you know?
Yeah, because like we've even talked about it here where we get these little glimpses of her artistic mind. Right,
Yeah.
like we get a very short description of like the snow and the
Yeah.
green and the color of apples that Isaac was holding or like stuff like that. But I think this is the first time we're given like almost like a full paragraph. And it's funny, I highlighted that entire quote too. So
I knew you
same
did.
brain. I love how you framed that whole situation, because you're right. That's exactly what's happening. It is Farah's first time it's experiencing something that is just for the point of experiencing.
Yes.
It is not for survival. It is not to feed. It is not, it's none of that. It is purely the joy of looking at something that's beautiful.
The joy of life.
Yeah. And that's it. There's no more point to
Nope.
it. And I'd actually never thought about that moment in that way. So I'm really happy you like brought it up in that way, because you're right. This is the first time. And I think Sarah J. Maas is very purposeful with that now that I think about it, because it's a full, like that quote is long. It is a full paragraph. And it is the
Mhm.
first time that we're really seeing Feyre like, because she's so taken aback that it's just fruit.
Yeah.
That that it's just a still life. I think is even the phrasing of it. Like it's just a still life. But it sucks her in. And anyone who is super into one specific thing, we all know that feeling. It can be the tiniest little thing in the world, but if it's in the vein of the thing that you are super into, it's going to suck you, it's going to draw you in, and you just the joy of seeing another person be skilled at that thing is
Yep.
so exciting and so fun. It's almost uncomfortable when
Yeah.
you find yourself falling into the joy of something like this, and then you're kind of like, "Oh, well, no, I don't." It's almost this level of feeling like you don't deserve it, or you feel
Yeah.
like for Feyre, she's like, "I don't have time. This is not what I'm doing. Like, I'm
Yep.
trying to map out the estate right now. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to, I'm trying to escape from my family." But
I
it's this conversation of like, when are we allowed to experience just joy for joy's sake?
rereading this book for the first time for me, like, it really contextualizes, like, what
Mm,
this book is about compared to what the other books is about for Feyre,
mm,
right? Like,
mm,
this book is, I mean, it's definitely in part about survival, and we'll see that a lot, later in the book, but to me, Thorns and Roses is really about a girl who is used to having to survive, now in a weird way surviving a very different thing, which is actually like learning to love life,
yeah,
and be comfortable in just receiving, which is,
yeah,
I think a lot of people, women in particular, really tend to struggle with
mm,
receiving because, like, especially when you're a caretaker for whether it's a child or another family member or just anyone. Feyre is the family caretaker, right?
mhm,
And getting to watch her adapt to just taking care of herself, and not just in survival terms, but in a genuine, like, what does my soul need,
mm.
right? It's a really fascinating thing to watch, especially in the first book of a series.
Yeah, and this is such early stages too, right?
Yeah.
This is still so early. Right now we're still very much in this headspace of like she's still trying to escape. Like she's able to even have this one moment because she is in a more comfortable situation than where she was at.
Yep.
Um, so that's why her brain's even able to have these thoughts. But yeah, it is very interesting.
She's just getting used to, remember, this is like day 2 or 3
Yeah, it's like day
that
2 or
she's been in
3.
Prythian.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's just starting to get used to calming down, like her like her nervous system calming down from
Yeah.
survival mode,
Yeah.
and then immediately finds out, "Oh, but there's something new I'm gonna have to survive," which is this blight that we learn about in this chapter. We find out that there is this sickness that they call the blight that is spreading across Prythian. It's been going on for almost 50 years now. Um, and it's also why where she is, at least where Feyre is right now, why it's so empty, right?
Mhm.
We also find out that it diminishes the Fae's power,
Mhm.
right? Like, they still have some power, but it is not as much. And it's also why, where at least Feyre is right now, everyone is wearing a mask.
We finally get the mask answer.
Yes, so they cannot take off these masks. Like, they're literally stuck to their
Ugh,
faces
awful.
because of this blight, which is like the
Awful.
weirdest side effect of a
So
blight
weird.
I've ever heard.
So weird
Like,
and just so awful. Like, I just
yes.
feels like it's so claustrophobic because especially now, all I think about is, like, COVID times.
Oh my
And I mean,
god.
like, luckily
Literal
this is
masks.
yeah, like, these are masks. And I mean,
Oh
like,
my
luckily,
god.
like, how Sarah J. Maas describes the masks is that they're very, like, masquerade masks, right? So, like, they stop above, the cheek or, like, they stop
Mhm.
at the cheek kind of area. So at least, like, their mouths and stuff are open, but just, like, imagine just, like, having that on your face
Oh my
all
god.
day. Sounds
I
awful.
can't.
What's sleeping
Well,
like?
and it's like made of some kind of uncomfortable metal
It's
or
gotta
some
be
shit.
exactly, it's gotta
Yeah.
be metal. Like,
Like gold or
thank God they're fey and they won't,
I
like,
know.
sizzle. Like, I mean, like, what if that shit gets hot and their skin is just like, you know?
So we find that out. We also find out that this is why Andres was on the other side of the wall, because she asked him, like, why the fuck was your friend even there? Like, I thought you guys weren't supposed to cross the wall. He tells her something like, well, we don't really have any rules except like we can't enslave humans, so we can kind of go wherever the fuck we want. We just don't, because there is a wall. But Andres was on the other side of the wall because he was searching for a cure. And the other important thing we find out is the blight has the possibility of hurting humans.
Yep.
Like, Tamlin, at the very least, thinks it's going to spread, and it's probably going to spread into the mortal territory, which is obviously very scary for Feyre because that's where her family is. And it's been around for quite a while. So they've been trying to figure this shit out for like almost 50, meaning they've also had these masks on for almost 50
Ugh,
years.
it's
Like, I
awful.
can't imagine that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of the focal point
Yeah.
of this book
Yeah.
is what the fuck is this blight and how do we fix it?
This also comes off of Tamlin. Pretty sure he like offers to like walk her around.
She like doesn't want to hang out with him, basically.
Yeah, no, she
Like,
doesn't want to hang out with him. First of all, he greets her by just saying you. You're like, okay, cool. Thanks. It's
yeah.
super nice of you. After the night before, he called her insignificant.
Which, real quick note, new readers, if you haven't figured out by now, I think it's safe to say this is obviously an enemies to lovers trope that we're
Yep.
doing here.
Yep.
Pretty clear at this
Yep.
point, I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. So he says, he's like, do you want a tour? She's like, no, I don't. Because honestly, because Feyre is outside because she's trying to case the joint, you know? She's trying to like figure out like, how the fuck do I get out of this place? But then he starts walking with her and he starts talking and he shares this kind of big, like, it's kind of a big piece of information to
Yeah.
tell her. And so it's sort of this new moment of like, okay, like, are we trusting? Is this you like
Yeah.
thrown off some trust?
Especially given that, like, they've only known each other for like maximum 5 days,
Max.
to which she was knocked out.
Yeah.
So,
That's a really good point.
but yeah.
And you know, it's interesting because I kind of appreciate it from like Tamlin's standpoint because this is also after like she's just like fucking berating him with questions. Like she's being a classic lady, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, so what's like what's the deal? What's going on, champ? Like what are we doing here? Because also he also has just told her like, I have told everyone here that they cannot hurt you.
Yeah.
So we're kind of hitting. So the night before, family's safe. She walks around. He's curious where she's going, and he's like, "Oh well, but like, you are actually like safe here because
Right.
I've told that no one can harm you." Okay.
Even though there's not that many people.
Yeah, there's not that
Yeah.
many people around, but because that's the other thing too that she comments on. She's like, "It's empty. It's so fucking
Yeah.
empty." Well, also, he gives the whole thing about the treaty of kind of being like, we actually aren't banned. He says it doesn't ban us from doing anything except for enslaving you. The wall is an inconvenience. If we cared to, we could shatter it, march through to kill you all. So he tells her that, and then he tells her about this blight that actually exposes his vulnerability because it's telling her, I'm not at full power.
Right.
And yeah, I've been stuck in these masks. And actually, it might fuck up your homies as well. Which is just so like we've got now like 4 to 5 things that are kind of like good guy things in a very aggressive kind of manner. You know, but it's it's interesting. We're like back to this sort of push and pull of like, okay, do we like him? Can we trust him?
This was definitely a big info dump chapter. Like,
Yes.
kind of one of the biggest, I would say. We're starting to feel out Tamlin may not be as bad as Feyre thinks he is, which is interesting because the next thing she does in chapter 8 is she steals a dinner knife. Like, she's just like, just in case I need to escape and like have something on me. Even though I know this dinner knife's not going to do shit, I'm going to take it just in case.
You know, I love her so much because also, I mean, chapter 8 starts with her just kind of being like, okay, I know Tamlin had knives on his body, so there's got to be an armory here somewhere.
Right.
And also, I know I shouldn't leave yet, but this whole blight thing now has me back to being like, bitch, I need to get the fuck out of here. so I'm gonna leave, but not yet. So I'm gonna just like run. Like, what a smart, clever fucking broad, you know?
And on top of that, she's like not even necessarily stealing the knife to use particularly against Tamlin or Lucien or anyone in the house, but against something she doesn't even know about because she notices that Tamlin and Lucien have swords on them,
Hmm.
and she says, "But there was no one here to use a sword against." And so she's like, "So what are they defending against?" And she even
Right.
brings up, she says, "Alice had said the house was safe, but warned me to keep my wits about me. What
Yeah.
might lurk beyond the house or be able to use my human senses against me."
Yeah.
So she knows something's out there. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I need to be worried about it. At the very minimum, I need some kind of a weapon, even if it's like the worst weapon in the world, to have on me.
Yeah. Well, and the dinner knife stealing happens right after she has that really weird experience in the garden.
Right.
Right? It's the
Yes.
whole she's walking around the garden, again, empty, fucking weird. Um, right? There's like no one there, and she can feel this sensation that reminds her a lot of when she's like in the woods and she feels like there's like a predator nearby or like all this stuff. But then she also she smells, or no, she doesn't smell anything, but she hears some stuff. She hears like a faint sniffle and a little giggle that are a little too close. And it's that kind of classic thing where something is like always at the corner of her eye, but she can't quite see it.
Very horror movie.
It really freaks her out, as it understandably would,
Yeah.
because she feels a being around her. She feels a creature or something. And so we're back to this kind of heightened thing of like, right, there's other stuff out there. We're not just going to be kind of cabin fevery stuck with these fae. Like,
Yeah.
there's going to be some other creatures that we're going to have to deal with. And it's and like, honestly, the only reason why I think she's not confronted by whatever this creature is because Alice, like, is like, lunchtime, like kind of cuts the moment. But it's this really freaky moment. And I think that's also what inspires her to get the knife too.
Yeah.
Because literally the next sentence after that is like, oh, I stole a knife from dinner that night. Like, kind of
Yes.
like, well, just have anything because it's fucking scary out here. Like, and it makes complete sense.
I don't know why this is the first time I'm thinking about this, and it's probably been talked about out there somewhere. But when you mentioned like Alice calling her for lunch, I realized I'm like, is Alice named Alice after the Brady Bunch?
Their housekeeper,
Yeah,
Alice.
I'm just realizing this. I don't know what it was about her calling her for lunch that made me go, "Oh my god, Alice from the Brady Bunch." Like,
Well, because I just imagine too, like, I mean, Tamlin is such a Brady.
yeah, oh my god, yeah. Like, now I have to know if I ever meet Sarah J. Maas one day, I'm gonna be like, "So you named her
So
after
you
Alice
named
from the
her
Brady
after
Bunch, right?"
Alice, right? Like,
Like,
obviously.
so the knife, there's other creatures, and I think at this point, Feyre has even said she knows there's different types of fae. She's heard tales of
Of the lesser
different
fae.
types.
Yeah.
The lesser fae or just like bedtime stories from
Mhm.
her mom or, other people. Another thing we learn is she's 19. We learned this at that dinner because they
Mhm.
ask her age. So
We have
I mean,
another
it's
dinner, kids.
yes,
It's
another
another
dinner.
meal. And I love how she says, like, obviously dinner's the only one I'm allowed to be with them. And
Yeah.
honestly, totally fine with it because
Yeah.
they're fucking annoying.
But yeah, we get that she's 19. It's a very, very typical romantasy trope of like the like young, barely a teenager, almost an adult, kind of age.
Mhm.
Um, but the other thing that I thought was really interesting about it was a pretty short chapter, so I
Yeah.
don't have a ton to talk about. But one quote that stuck out to me was she says, "This wild, small dream could still come to pass. My
Mm.
sister is comfortably married off in a lifetime with my father, with enough food for us both and enough time to maybe paint a little, or to maybe learn what I wanted. It could still happen in a faraway land, perhaps, if I ever got out of this bargain." And what I find really interesting about this is she has reached this point in her life where, especially if this were anyone from her village, right? If this were Isaac, if this were one of the people in her village, they would probably have been like, "Oh my god, I've made it. I can literally do whatever the fuck I want. I could paint, or do whatever
Yeah.
my passion is." But she says her dream that she has is still possible in a faraway land,
Yeah.
meaning she's not seeing that it's possible here,
Yeah.
right? And I just want readers to bear that in mind.
It's also that she knows that if she were to escape, she would have to escape far and go very
Yeah,
far from
yeah.
Tamlin, from Prithian, really. More than from Tamlin, but from Prithian, from any of the other fae that might get her. Because at this point, she is still very much viewing her situation as a captive
Yeah.
thing. She is,
Understandably.
yeah, she's still very much like, yeah, this is not a safe place for me
No.
because of these men and because of this fucking blight
Yep.
situation. But yeah, I mean, I also think what's interesting in that quote is when she says, "Or to maybe learn what I wanted." I think that's a
Mhm.
really big moment too. And I just think like,
Mhm.
you know, I think all of us, I think it also goes back to sort of the art moment of just we all have this we get really stuck in living for our friends or our family or our partner or our whatever that we have to sort of step back and be like, wait. What do I want? Like,
Right.
I know for me, that was a big part of therapy for me, of realizing
Yeah.
that I lived my life a lot through the idea of just like, what what did those around me want? And how
Mhm.
could I do better at accomplishing that for those people? And
Yeah.
then slowly realizing, well, like, wait, what do I want? Who do I want to be around? I think that's a
Right.
pretty important moment. So I think for many reasons, I feel like readers should like remember this. Another like little thing that we get from this dinner is just like Tamlin's observation of Feyre. He makes the comment that she likes to hunt. She's
Yeah.
like, "How do you know?" And he was like, "Well, I saw a bow and arrow. Your dad had soft hands. You do blah blah blah." Like it's very it goes back to this idea of like Tamlin's trying to be super like aloof and cool, but it's also very obvious that he is like aware of every single moment and thing that she does. It's a
Yes.
tiny thing, but it's like each time you're like, "Oh," which to me feels like very classic like romantasy where it's like, "Oh, the like brooding cold man, he noticed when she like blinched." Or,
Yeah, yeah.
and we fucking love it. We love it.
Yeah.
We
We
eat
eat
it
it
up.
up.
We're
Just
just yum, 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 yum. We're just like, yes. Yes, he does notice when she puts her hair behind her ear and he does know. We fucking love it because deep down, we all want to be the fucking center of someone's attention.
yes. It's
Obviously.
it's the little things,
Oh
right? Well,
yeah.
and I'm so glad you brought that up because I can't remember if it was at the dinner or the next day when they take a walk. The other thing he notices is that her mother must be dead because he says, I didn't see anything that would indicate like an older woman lived there. We see this softer side of Tamlin for the very first time where he actually like genuinely expresses condolences to Feyre. And
Mhm.
she very is like she's pretty cavalier about it. She's like, "Yep, she died from typhus. It's not a big deal. Let's move on." And he's like, "No, well, no, I'm sorry," right? Like he actually shows more emotion than she does, frankly, about
Yeah.
her mom's death, which is, I think, really significant. It humanizes him.
Totally. That was one of the other things that I like even wanted to say was just like this moment is really sweet because also after she does the typhus whatever, his response to be like, "Come on, baby girl, like we know you're sad," is just him
Yep.
saying her name. He just goes,
Yeah.
"Farah," and ooh.
Is that the first time? No, he said it. He said it before.
He said it one time before because Farah, he keeps calling her you, and
Yeah.
and she keeps being like, "Does the man know my name?" And then at
Right.
one point, and I think it might have been in the last chapter or something. He like, or no, the first dinner where they're being sassy, extra
Yes.
sassy broads. He says her name towards the end, and she's like, "Oh, okay, he does know my name."
Yeah, she's like, "How did you know?" He said, like, "I heard your family say it," or something
Yeah,
like that. So, but yeah, no, it's I think a really important moment for them where she's like realizing he's paying more attention
yeah,
than she previously thought.
yeah,
And it's not even necessarily because he's like trying to figure her out for nefarious reasons. Like he's he's genuinely like paying attention to who she is as a person.
I think this moment about her mom is like, it's like weirdly very sweet, and it kind of gives
Yeah.
you this moment of like, I wonder if he's lost someone. I wonder if he's
Mhm.
lost someone really close to him, because it's that type of sympathy that you tend to get in these books when someone else has experienced something similar. Because
Right.
there's even kind of a moment where him and Lucien both kind of go quiet when they find out that her mom is dead. And you're
Yep.
kind of like, "Oh, something happened to them."
I think what we're realizing through this is Tamlin and Lucian, but also presumably the other Fae, really have no idea what the humans think of them,
Yeah.
right? Like, and it gives us like a little peek into like how long has it been since humans and Fae really, in a significant way, interacted with one another.
Yeah.
We do know at this point about the children of the blessed, right? So,
Right.
like, that's probably the most human interaction that the Fae have with humans. And we don't really know what happens to those children. Like, they rarely come back to the
Yeah.
human world, right? And the question is that because they choose to stay in Prithian, or are the Fae just killing them, right?
Right.
Like, so it is this weird moment of like, oh, Tamlin, who at this point, like, I think it's pretty safe to assume Tamlin has no interest in going
Yeah.
out of his way to hurt humans, right?
Yeah.
And neither does Lucian really. Like, there's no indication that they do. If they hurt humans, it's because the humans try to hurt them,
Yeah, like
right?
they clearly have distaste for humans,
Yes.
but it doesn't, especially just because there's a very, because even Tamlin in one of, I can't remember if this just this chapter or the chapter before, Feyre asks like, why didn't you just like kill me or like
Yeah.
whatever? And he just says, I've killed too much. So they clearly have a dislike for killing, for ending lives, no matter what form of creature you are. And
Right.
so I think these they clearly have some type of compassion. And yeah, I would say, I think it's pretty safe to say that by this point in the book, you feel pretty confident of like, if either of them end up hurting Feyre, it's going to be a big surprise, or it's going to
Yes.
be for potentially something unforeseen or whatever. But like, I feel like we
Yeah.
can kind of start trusting that she's like kind of in a safe space. Cause if not, like, this is a really weird, like, kind of long
Trap.
game.
But regardless, like, even though we as the readers can kind of discern that, Feyre hasn't quite figured it out. And she does a couple of things at the end of this chapter. The first is she decides she's going to try and get Lucien on her side the next day to convince him to let Tamlin out of this bargain, right?
Hmm.
Because she's still trying, like, she is still in that survival mode of like, I need to get out of here, I need to get out of Prithian, and I need to get back to my family, even though they're both like, she and her family are clearly being taken care of. She knows her best shot at that is Lucien, so she decides that, and she decides to pack a go bag just in case,
Yep.
including with that dinner knife.
Yep.
So she's still on edge,
Yep.
which leads us into chapter 9. She continues to look for things that are useful for her, that can help her escape. She also realizes that there's not really a court around this
Hmm.
manor. She asks, because her and Lucian go on a walk. He asks her, "Do you want to come on the scout with me?" He kind of, gives her a few little jabs, right? She actually starts like retorting back,
Yeah.
and he enjoys it. Like, she takes Alice's advice and like kind of pushes back, and he's like, "Ah, that's what I'm talking about." She asks him, "Where's Tamlin's court? Like, did they all flee because of the blight?" And Lucian's me is immediately like, "Whoa, how'd you know about this court?" Right? He says, "Something was sent from the shitholes of hell." He said, then he glanced around and swore, "I shouldn't have said that. If word got back to her." And then he stops, and Feyre goes, "Who?" And he says, "Never mind, the less you know, the better."
Yep.
Right? So Feyre's like, okay, there's some her out there. And she
Hmm.
says, a her who scared Lucian enough to make him worry, to make him afraid someone might be listening, spying, monitoring his behavior, even out here. Okay?
Hmm.
And then she goes on to say, Prithian was ruled by 7 high lords. Perhaps this she whoever governed this territory. If not a high lord, then a high lady, if that was even possible.
Hmm.
So there's a her out there. Maybe it's a her who rules, because Feyre still doesn't know where she is in Prithian,
Yeah.
right? Like, she still has no idea where she is. And so maybe this her rules over wherever the fuck Feyre is. But
Yeah.
all we know is there's a her, and Lucien is scared of her.
Yeah. She's clearly like enough on Tamlin and Lucian's side, like enough to be like, oh fuck. Like
Yeah.
this person scares me too. Like if these guys are scared of her, like I'm scared of her. And like she even kind of starts like sort of looking around as if she can like see someone that's listening to them or like whatever.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of that interesting like who are your real villains and like who are you really like against, you know? I remember as a first time reader, I had this moment of like, hell yeah, it's a woman they're afraid of. Fuck
Yeah.
yeah. Like being so stoked. I'm like, please tell me the big bad is a lady. Like, please tell me. It would be so awesome. So we're kind of getting this first glimpse, and we're getting this moment of like maybe Tamlin and Lucien aren't the big bads. Who
Mhm.
is the big bad? There's gonna be one. There always is one in one of these
Of
books.
course.
And I also think it does show an interesting level of like information that she knows. Like that she
Yeah.
knows that there are 7 High Lords, that she knows, you know, she knows enough about the fairy kind of politics to sort of be like, okay, but like, fuck, you
Yeah.
know? And then I think she starts becoming even more aware of just actually how wild Prithian is in the sense of Lucian is scared to say something while he's riding a horse in the woods on his like master's land,
Yes.
but he's still
Yeah.
scared. Like, I
Yep.
just feel like that shows the outreach and the power of all of these other creatures, and you're just kinda like, "Oh, fuck, like, this is okay, this is a little scary," and I think it helps Feyre starting to get a scope of just like,
Yes.
"Hey, is it better the devil you know? Probably." Also, all before this conversation, Lucian totally is like, "Oh, by the way, when are you gonna ask me about trying to talk to Tamlin about getting you out of here?"
Yes. He
He
totally calls her
sees
out.
he fucking calls her out. He sees right
Yep.
fucking through her and she's like, what?" You know, and he's like, "Come on. Like, you really don't think I knew that's why you looked for me this morning? You really don't think that I fuck like this moment I'm like, "Lucian, I love you." Like I laugh. I read this book like 4 times. And in this moment when he's just like, "So, when are you going to start trying to persuade me to besiege Tamrin to find a way to free you from the treaty's rules?" I out loud started laughing. I was like, dude, this fucking bitch. I love him so much. He's just like, seriously, like, come on. Like, I know that's why you were there when I was leaving. Like, I'm impressed and flattered, but like, come on. And then he goes straight to the point of like, one, if I had my way, you'd be gone.
Yeah.
So I don't need convincing. Two, I can't. I've tried.
Yeah.
So like very quickly, he's just like, "Hey," and then he kind of goes on to kind of like compliment her of like, I admire like what you're trying to do.
Game sees game.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Game sees game. I recognize you, but like I'm being so for real when I tell you the safest place for you to be is here with me in Tamlin. You're stuck here. You can go off wherever you want, but I would highly advise for you to stay with us. She's free, but she's not free. And
Right.
it's just this, but for some reason, the way it comes from Lucian, because Tamlin, he tells her it while he's like using magic to like keep her down, and you're kind of like, okay. But like
Yeah.
Lucian, it kind of feels more like, "Hey, baby girl, I see it. I know you want to leave. I want you to leave too. I don't fucking want you here either. You're messing up
Yeah.
everything. You're not a joy. You smell and you don't think I'm pretty. Like this is not fun. You won't drink wine with
I have
me.
no interest in you.
No interest in you. You won't drink wine with me and get drunk. You know, you're kind of boring. Humans are boring. Ugh. I would like to get rid of you. I can't. We both have to suffer. Like it kind of feels like that moment in those like stupid teen movies when like the like the mean girl and the main girl end up like getting stuck in detention together and they're just like can't get rid
Yes.
of each other, but fuck, and then they both realize that they're both just like funny sassy broads and they like bond or
Yes.
something. Like this is what this feels. It's like Lucian is just like, "Girl, I hate you too, but
Yeah.
shit, we're
We're
stuck."
stuck together. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and we have to remember that the mask that Lucian is wearing is a fox mask. And I don't think that's an accident. I think that that is symbolic of something
Mhm.
because foxes are very clever and
Mhm.
foxes are very tricky. I mean, he does say, when he's talking about her and, why I think it's when he's talking about like why the mask is on him. He says, "I didn't keep my mouth shut when I should have and was punished for it."
Yep.
Right? Like, so we know he has a clever tongue,
Yeah.
is what I'll say. The other thing that, you know, this whole conversation about her and just like their conversation in general brings up is there are other types of fairies out
Mhm.
there, including one that he tells her about called the Surreal.
The cereal.
The Surreal. Oh, I want to talk about the Surreal so bad right now, but we'll have to wait into the spoiler section. All I'll tell you folks is I have a very special place in my heart for the Surreal.
Yeah.
They are, quote, old and wicked and not worth the danger of going out to find them, according to Lucien, but they will answer any question that you ask them.
Yep.
If you can trap them. You have to trap them. That's what's
Yep.
interesting. But they seem very scary,
Yeah.
right?
The cereal right now for Feyre is sort of this little we know our girl
Yeah.
is clever. We know that she's a pretty ballsy broad.
Yeah.
And so, you know, Lucian already is even kind of like, whatever your eyeballs are planning right now, like, don't, like, I see, like, don't get excited by what I just told, and I love that he already is kind of like figuring this out about her. I think Fair is kind of like, okay, here's something that maybe could give me answers because I don't know if I trust these guys with their flowery speech, with their back and forth. Like, I know technically they don't lie, but like,
They're clever with their words.
Lucian has a fox mask on. Like, there's a lot of things that could be taken. Like, it very much feels like I'm gonna log that away for later. Like, that's
Right.
very much what that piece of information feels like. Another thing, anytime we get a little insight
Yeah.
on anyone's powers, I think is like very important because it's
Mhm.
how we're like slowly learning this world. It's how we're slowly getting information on just like how things navigate. And it kind of comes in this whole moment of like Farah just being an inquisitive gal, right? And Lucian's all like, "Oh, you're trying to figure out my weaknesses," because she's just like, "What powers do you have? Like, can you shapeshift like Tamlin?" And he's like, "No, I can't shapeshift. Only Tam can." And then she's like, "But your friend was a wolf." And he's like, "No, no, Andrus was high fae too, but Tamlin can shift us into other shapes if need be. He saves it for his sentries, though." So,
Mhm.
so we're kind of getting this like it's another little piece of information that I know for me as someone who's read this book multiple times, I forget this little detail. That Tamlin can shapeshift others. I think it's a pretty important thing just to like have in the back of your head when you're like reading other aspects of this part, because it also means that Tamlin changed his friend into a wolf to go into the human lands, so that way he looked like a wolf, right? So he didn't look like Fae. But that also it's
Mhm.
also kind of starts creating a complicated question in your mind
Of
of
why.
like, yeah, why a wolf? Why
Mhm.
couldn't
That can be
you
hunted.
Why couldn't you just shapeshift him so he looked more like a human? Like, I don't know. There's
Yeah.
just a lot of questions there for me.
As far as we know, Tamlin can only shapeshift himself and I would think others into
Animals.
animal forms.
Yeah. So there's a lot of questions there for sure. But I just think
Yeah.
it kind of starts on unraveling certain things that maybe you've already started thinking about with Tamlin. And also knowing that like Lucian doesn't have these kinds of powers. You're like,
No.
okay, so like what makes
Even though he's high
him,
fae.
even though he's high fae, what makes him different? Because we don't really know yet why
Right.
Tamlin is different or whatever.
Or why he owns this estate.
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't really know any of that yet. We know that people call
Yeah.
him like master, like he's clearly like the owner of this space, but you're kind of like,
Yes.
what's the deal? You know?
Right.
And then Lucian and Feyre finally have their first kind of true moment of I am really sorry about your friend.
Yeah.
It's kind of Feyre's
Yeah.
first like she's apologized to kind of like the general group but I think it's kind of her first moment having a little eye to eye moment with Lucien of like, I really am sorry about this. And I think
Yeah.
we kind of get a little gift of Lucien sort of being like, I think he actually just says like, I think Tamlin knows that or whatever. But I think
Yeah.
it's kind of his little way of being like, yeah, like I know, like I see that. We're kind of
Yes.
starting to see like a bit more of a friendship between these two. I mean, it's like the sassiest of sassy rides ever, and it's like very funny. This chapter starts with Tamlin offering again to hang
Yes.
out with her,
Yeah.
to go on a ride. He even says like, we could try to find you a new residence. Like, so
Yeah.
again, here's another olive branch, as it were, of like, you don't have to stay here, but since you have to stay in the land, if you want somewhere, whatever. But like, he even kind of like tries to like tease her. Like, the first thing he says to her is like, oh, no tripwires today. And you're like,
Yeah.
like, so there's sort of a wall he's attempting to break down, and she is not there. She is like laser focused on like,
Yep.
nope, I got to get to Lucien because I got to convince him to talk to you because I can't fucking
Yeah.
talk to you. And Tamlin is not happy that she
No.
says no. Tamlin clenched his hands into fists as if fighting against the claws itching to burst out. But he didn't reprimand me, didn't do anything other than prowl back into the house without another word. Again, animalistic adjectives, beast vibes.
Yes.
Baby boy's a little hurt. He kind of wanted to like hang out with this girl, and he feels like he's being really nice. He feels like he's trying to like help her, and she's kind of like, no, which, can you blame her, dude?
Right.
But from like a romance novel moment, you're kind of like, and honestly, the way she describes Tamlin when he's first walking up is very sexy. I am a sucker for a rolled up sleeve.
Oh, girl, same.
And they're like, the sleeves of his white shirt had been rolled up to the elbows to reveal tanned forearms corded with muscle. Oh, God, I love it. It's my
Well, and it's
favorite.
especially like when I love it when like dudes, it's like not only is it rolled up sleeves, but it's like they're not wearing like they're supposed to be like wearing a vest or something, like some kind of formal tie, and it's like that's taken off. The buttons are undone a little, rolled
Yeah.
up sleeves. It's like,
Yeah, and you're just like, yes. And Tamlin is tall and tan and like long blonde hair. And like, I just get total like, freaking like Chris Hemsworth, just like,
yes.
you just kind of get this like, yeah, like,
Well,
oh,
and I think what I like, one of the biggest complaints I see online about this book in particular, but even some people think the whole series, which I disagree with, is it's not smutty enough, right? Which, like, look, I know different people have different levels of what they're into, and that's totally fine. For me, I think what I like about it, and I think what this part touches on, is it's a little more about the foreplay,
yeah,
right? Like, this to me is a form of foreplay, right?
yeah,
It's that initial attraction. Like, it's the whole appeal of have like the beginnings of a crush,
yeah,
right? Like it's so, and especially for like broads like us who have been in like long committed relationships for like, I mean, you and Jeff have been together for going on 11 years, me
yeah,
and David 13 years. Like it's been a long time since
yeah,
like I know I've had a crush, and it's like it's that feeling and I'm like, "Ooh, like get to have a little crush. Like this is so fun." Like to
yeah.
me that can almost be better than the hardcore fucking, you know?
Yeah, because well, I think just because it's such a relatable feeling.
Yeah.
Like we all
Yeah.
remember, and also what's so funny too is Feyre is kind of in that zone where she's like, she's not really acknowledged, like she has acknowledged that he's an attractive human.
Yes.
But like these little moments where it's like
Mhm.
corded muscle and like all this stuff, these are just, SJM trying to just describe, but we also know like if you clock muscle, if you clock all that shit, there's a little tingling going on somewhere
Of
if you
course.
are interested in men in this way. But, also
Yes.
like,
Or women,
women have
I
some
would
muscle
say.
on them.
Yeah.
So I think it's this cute moment of kind of like Farah is clocking all this shit,
Yeah.
but she's not going to like admit to herself really at
And
all.
we've all been there. We've all had those crushes where we're like, "Oh, I shouldn't be into you for whatever reason." But for some reason, and I think that's what's so fun. It feels very like it feels very like high school,
Oh, yeah.
right? Of like, "Ugh, I don't like you, but you are kind of hot." And it's like,
Mm.
I don't know, it's very fun,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah. It's just really funny because I just like when I read this moment, I was like, oh my God, I'm such a sucker for the rolled up
Yeah.
sleeves. Like, oh God, I love it. So I love that she kind of gave us that little moment. Also, I think it might be time for Corinne's favorite sound description.
Ooh. I feel like
So
we need like a sound effect for
I
for
know.
Corinne's favorite sound.
Okay.
Your face just like going across the screen
Yeah.
or
Da,
something.
da, da, da. Yeah. Every time it's just Corinne doing a different noise with her head, just like beep boop, beep boop, beep boop. So this one, it's a very, very minimal.
Ooh.
Because like you would think I would have gone with like the creatures that she heard or were around her in the last one, because there's like the description of the gravel and the characters like sniffing, which I think is very cool. It's like giving them the character. I love that. But for some reason, the one that hit me this week is, and it's at the end of this chapter, and it says, Lucien whipped his head to the right, listening, his eye whirring softly.
Ooh. I mean, Lucian's eyes is it's a significant part of the ACOTAR series, I would say.
It is when she's riding on the horse and she's like, yeah, I hope his eye, like she's wondering if he can see through the back of his head, you know, or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
shit like
yeah.
that. Just his eye in general is just like such a mystery because so many fans, there's so many questions, right? Of like, how do you picture it? How do you picture it? How do you picture it?
Yeah.
So we all have different concepts of what this eye looks like. There are other times throughout the series where Mama Mass brings up the whirring of his eye. It's this reminder that it's mechanic. It's this
Yeah.
reminder that it's not real. But it's also this reminder, it's sort of this constant working thing.
Mhm.
And that just means that, first of all, that means that Lucien has his own personal like sound effect that is happening all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. So like in
Yeah.
my mind, that means you could tell when Lucien was coming near you because his eyeball would be going.
I never even thought, especially with like that Fey hearing, like
Yeah,
you're immediately
exactly.
gonna pick that up.
When I decided this was going to be my sound thing for this week, I was like, what would I do for that? And for in my
Yeah.
mind, like a lot of what I hear when it's the whirring, and I think it's a sound that most of us would probably think it's more of like a
Yeah.
almost like
Like
a
a rolling.
almost like a rolling or like a purr sort of mixed with some kind of like metallic
You
like
know Sarah J. Maas loves her
I
purring.
know she
So
loves her purr. But like it's like a whirring, it's that sound with a sort of like metallic aspect to it.
very steampunk.
Very exactly. Extremely
Yeah.
steampunk is how I would imagine it.
I love that.
I just think it's interesting that he has a sort of constant character. But what's also
Yeah.
cool, all of a sudden at the end of this chapter, we start feeling a presence about us.
His eye whirs towards something.
Yeah, and then he literally says, "Don't react." Lucien said, forcing his gaze ahead too, the metal eye going still and silent.
Ooh, that's I never thought about it from a sound aspect. That's so creepy.
It's very creepy.
Oh.
So that means he always has control
Yes.
over
Yeah.
that eye.
Mm,
And that
mhm,
means he is
mhm.
like when it's whirring and working and twerking, he is working and twerking it. I just love, and this almost kind of could play into like your world a little bit too, but like
I
I
was
just
gonna
love
say.
this idea of they're sitting in the woods, and from like a sound design standpoint, he kind of stops, he looks about, you hear the eye working, trying to figure something out. All of a sudden he gets scared and just silence. The whirring stops. Yeah, right? You felt it,
Ooh, I
right?
felt
Exactly. And and he says, he's like, no matter what you feel or see, don't react, don't look, just stare ahead. And Feyre's like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden, she feels it.
well, that and it leads actually into my writer director moment, funny enough, of what they encounter, which is, I believe I'm pronouncing this correctly, the bog.
The bog.
So this specifically, and I wrote this quote down, the moment where Feyre hears, it's funny, I feel like I'm crossing over a little into your territory.
We're both kind of crossing because like this is a
Yeah,
pretty sound designy moment too,
very sound
honestly.
design.
But yeah,
And that's why I love it. So for me, the screenwriting directing moment of the chapters that we read this week, I really focused on was when we see the bog, or when we first encounter the bog, specifically when Feyre hears the bog in her mind, and he says, "I will grind your bones between my claws. I will drink your marrow. I will feast on your flesh. I am what you fear. I am what you dread. Look at me. Look at me." Woo! So fucking good.
so creepy.
Also, I am a simp for an alliteration. So when he says, "I will feast on your flesh," I'm like, I love it. Such a good screenwriting moment, especially. Oh, it's so good. It weirdly reminds me of that moment in Fellowship of the Ring. It's like one of the first like scary moments. I know this is like one of your favorite movies, so you probably remember it better than I do, but like
I will help you
when
once I know what we're doing.
yeah, it's when like Frodo is like I just remember him hiding behind a tree and there's like a very scary creature there in like some long black cape.
Oh,
Do you
oh,
know what I'm
Ariel.
talking about?
Oh,
Is
oh,
that Fellowship?
sweet. No,
It's
okay.
been forever.
Okay, you're talking about one of the first times they encounter the ring wraiths.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin have
Yes.
all fallen down and they're kind of like in the roots of a tree,
Yes. Yes.
right?
That's the exact moment.
And
Yes.
the sound design of that moment is
That's
so
why.
fucking good. You and
That's
I
why it
actually got to
reminded me.
talk to that lady. Do you remember this?
Oh my
Do you
god,
remember this? And I
yes.
got to talk
I
to her
for
about this. Do you
I forgot she did Lord of the Rings. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
because that moment is so incredible because yes,
Yeah.
he's sitting there and basically you see the ring wraith go over and he's like sniffing around and Frodo pulls out the ring and he starts kind
Yes.
of like hearing these voices. And then what's incredible is you start getting these low bass hits
Yep.
that
Mhm.
basically I always just felt was like power. Like that's their sound for like
Yeah.
power. You're starting to feel the power like kind of come in and like hit.
Yeah.
And what's awesome is this sound happens that it sounds like when your bass is too heavy on your speakers and it
Yeah.
starts breaking up.
Yep.
And
Yep, yep,
she
yep.
told us that's actually what she did.
Yeah.
That they actually
You know,
put in a sound of like, or is this starting to like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's reminding me, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that sound when like, it's just it's too heavy in your speakers, like the drivers, they just can't handle it. So it's like it's this breakup sound. So it's like kind of poppy and like uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And then you start hearing, I don't know if that's one of the first times you hear Saruman's voice, but like you kind of
I think
start
so.
getting that a
Yeah.
little bit. Oh god, I love that you brought that up because that moment is like one of like probably one of the first times that I was ever hit of fuck, sound is powerful and
I
incredible.
mean, surprise, surprise, the horror bitch
Right.
loved the horror moment in these chapters. So, yeah,
Shocking.
that would be shocking.
Yeah.
Shocker of the year.
Well, I
But
could
yeah.
also see like for you, because the whole concept too, right, is that like she can't look at it.
Yeah.
And so just like the visual of that is like really incredible because you would basically have this because it's another thing where she talks about, right, where it's like the corner of her eyes, she's like seeing something,
Yeah.
but she can't look, right? Because
Yeah.
that's like the one thing that he told her not to do. So it's like, just imagine that shot of like these two people on horseback
Yeah.
in the middle. Oh, and I see that's what you mean by like the slow-mo thing. Like you could almost
Yes.
have the thing around them moving in slow motion, but like they
Yep.
wouldn't be. And they
Yeah.
just have to
Yeah.
stare forward.
Yep. Well, and maybe this is why I was drawn to it. I literally, like last year, wrote a script about a horror movie about something that you're not supposed to look at.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I love those things. It reminds me a little bit of like when it's by her in Alien 3, when like the alien's
Mm,
right next to her and
totally.
like sticks out its tongue and
And
she's
she's
like
just
not
like, "Eh."
looking at it. But it's so creepy. We learn about the bog a bit. We learn from Lucian you can't hunt it, you can't kill it, not even with ash arrows.
It's not supposed to be there.
And the reason you can't look at it or anything is because once you acknowledge it, it becomes real. And the voice is in her head,
Yeah.
right? Like it's not literally talking out loud, it's in her head. Which begs the question, what is Lucian here? I'm very curious.
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question.
The other thing I noted is this is kind of the first time Lucien and Feyre kind of finally start bantering with one another, which I
Yeah.
really loved. Like,
Yeah,
that was really fun.
absolutely, because he's just like, you know, I love he calls her like, "Oh, mighty mortal huntress."
Yeah.
And this is the moment when she was like, "How old are you? Did you fight in the war?" And he's like,
Yeah.
"Fuck." Literally he says, "Shit, Farah, I'm not that old." And you're just like, so it's very clever. Like they're just kind of getting at it, and then
I feel like
um
that's something, sorry, really quickly, like, when you're like us, or around our age, like in your 30s, you start getting those questions of like, "Oh, like, are you like this
yeah,
old?" It's like, I'm not that
I'm not
old.
that
Like,
old. Like, Jesus. He starts really like getting on her, and he's just like, "Do you ever like stop being so dull?" And she literally says, "Do you ever stop being such a prick?" And what I love is in her head, she goes, "Dead. Really, truly, I should have been dead for that."
yeah.
And
Yeah.
he just grins at her and says, "Much better." And you're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, Alice was right. This
Yep.
is adorable. They're gonna have this little like sassy partnership. I love this for them." Also,
Yes.
like Farah needs a fucking friend if
Right.
she's gonna be in this new world.
Yep.
So yeah, I think it's very like this moment with the bog is terrifying, but I think it kind of like brings them together
Yeah. They
and
trauma bond.
they trauma bond. And I think also he probably has this moment of like, fuck, she kind of like handled herself pretty well. Like she didn't look.
Yeah.
She
She
like
proved herself.
she proved herself. I literally wrote in my notes, sassy friends coming together.
Yay, we love it.
We
But
love it.
then
But then,
then what's interesting, they come home and TamTam
oh my
getting a
God.
little jealous.
Yeah, he is mad.
Yeah.
His claws are out. Like he's like "Where were you guys?" Like, "Oh yeah, I heard you were on a hunt." Like, "Okay, bro." And how like
So
Lucian's all
gossipy.
like, I know Lucian's like he's like trying to get Feyre to like say more, and she's just like, "What the fuck? Like, I don't know what
Yeah.
I'm supposed to say." So yeah, he's like a little jealous, which like, one end you're kind of like, "What the fuck, dude?" But then like on
Yeah.
another end you're kind of like, "Okay, like you're
It's a
jealous
little
of
hot.
Lucian with Feyre." Like,
Yeah.
okay.
But then Lucian tells him, "We saw the bog."
Yep.
And Tam's like, "Fuck, gotta go hunt it," which is interesting because Lucian just said you can't kill the bog, but apparently Tamlin can. So that's interesting. It really solidifies Tamlin is someone. He is someone big and he has extra powers of some sort that we have yet to see that allows, even though his powers are diminished. We know they're diminished because of the blight, yet he has enough of them to kill the fucking bog. So that's significant.
Yeah, and the fact that he is still like, I feel like we need to reiterate this, a creature that no one can fight, but Tamlin can, even
Mhm.
though his powers are diminished. Fuck, dude. I mean, if this guy just
Yeah.
got weirdly 10 times sexier, like, wowie. Like,
I
he
mean,
is very powerful.
with them rolled up sleeves.
It's the like metal groaned
Yes.
as Tamlin's claws punched out, obliterating the fork that he already bent. He rose to his feet with a powerful, brutal movement. I tried not to tremble at the contained fury, at how his canines seemed to lengthen as he said, "Where in the forest?" Oh my
You got the canine
God.
kink?
Dude, I'm sorry. Don't we all, those who grew up reading Twilight, what do you expect from me? What do you
Don't
expect
get
from
me started
me?
on Twilight. We talked about that last time.
We like in this chapter with Feyre kind of having the same moment that I think you and I were just doing, which was like, she's like, this really like gruff high fae dude who's been flattering me is powerful enough to do this. Like, what? Like, she's kind of starting to get a
That's
little like,
crazy.
oh, okay. Like, wow. And then she realizes she's like actively staying up to see if he gets home safely.
Yep.
She's like looking out in the garden and she's kind of like, "Oh,
It's
okay." And
very high
like,
school crush.
it's very high school crush. And she's just like ridiculous, utterly ridiculous. Like she's very aware from it. And then when she sees movement in the garden, she actually like hides herself because she's
Mhm.
like, "Oh no, I don't want him to see.
How
I don't
embarrassing.
how
Just
embarrassing. Oh my God. I don't want him to see that I'm looking for him." But she realizes it's not Tamlin. It's looking at her. He's male. He's hunched.
and he's not a fairy.
But
It's her father.
I literally wrote in my notes, "Papa?"
Papa, can you hear me?
Papa, can you hear me? And that's how the fucking chapter ends. And Ariel and I are such shisty bitches that that's where we had the reading end.
No,
Sorry,
no, no.
guys.
Let me say, and I will say I agreed, but you were the one
I
who
was.
recommended. don't don't pretend.
I know. You're right. I totally did that. Well, because it's like such a fun little moment to like
Oh
end
my
on of
god,
like, what?
it's so. How the fuck is he here?
Is he okay?
Yeah, where's her sisters? Like, so next week we're in theory going to find that out. Your homework for next week is chapters 11 through 13. And hopefully we're going to find out why Papa Archeron is in Prithian, because how the fuck did he get past that wall? Like she couldn't even she had to be knocked out. Like what?
Yeah, and like he can barely walk. Like
Yeah.
what? How is he there? Like there's so many questions. I think if you've stayed along with us so far, you're starting to realize that the book's kind of starting to pick up. If you are so moved by the spirit, you can always read more, guys. Like,
Oh yeah.
trust me. Honestly, I don't think I would have ever been able to do this split up the way that we're like asking people
No.
to do. But we're just saying these are the chapters we're going to talk about like per episode.
There's going to be people who've read the whole series who
So like
listen to this.
Listen to your heart. We're not going to be mad, but you can feel things are starting to pick up. We're starting to learn about the world more. Pretty cool. And honestly, it like just keeps getting better. So if it still hasn't fully grabbed you yet, just please, for our sake, if you have any feelings towards us whatsoever, just hold on a little bit longer.
Those of you who have read the full series, stick with it. Stick with this full book, especially.
Yeah.
Things will get rolling. I promise you.
We promise.
And this is no diss to Sarah J. Maas. Like, her writing's amazing.
This is an intro book. This is an intro.
Yes.
So, yeah. And so, as always, you're welcome.
And we're sorry. Bye, guys.
See you next week.